Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. I am James Jones. I'm joined today by Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
Hello, hello.
Mr. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
And Mr. John Lindeman.
Great to be here, James.
It is great to have you this week, John, unless you're going to come at me immediately like you did last week, which I didn't appreciate.
No, James. James, please, continue.
I actually had someone comment on, he kind of came right after you at the start of the episode. I was like, yeah, a little bit. I hadn't even done anything yet. I did do stuff later.
Calm, cool,
I did do stuff later, but I hadn't done anything yet. It is August 15th, 2024, and today will forever be known as Fucked Up Hand Day. Do you all know why it's known as Fucked Up Hand Day?
You have a fucked up hand?
No, I have pasted it into the chat for this call. This Supermarket Manager 2024 came out on the Switch eShop today. I want you to examine the hand of the woman who is...
I don't want to see it. I've seen it before. I don't want to look at it.
How would you describe this hand?
I feel like the title Supermarket Manager is burying the lead that person may in fact be the T-1000. I think that is more important than...
I was thinking more the symbiote, to be honest.
Yeah,
it was kind of
could be some Venom action.
To me, her hand reminds me of... people have seen the kind of the meme Sonic, like, frozen treat thing. Like,
yes,
the kind of
with the
horrible...
eyes not coming down or whatever.
I feel like her hand is that, with the kind of the spikes.
It's the worst AI hand I've ever seen. And that's saying a lot. I also can't tell what she's holding or why the produce is emitting such a glow that her face looks irradiated, or why the person behind her, who is clearly at least 8 feet off and yet still taller than her, must be like 9 feet tall. Like nothing is good
They're
here.
great to have in the supermarket, I guess.
Well, with what I must assume are elasto arms, I doubt she needs the help. If you haven't seen this, you should look. It really makes it clear that there is a overabundance of Mind Journey generated images on the eShop, and I will just say, not because I'm working on an article or anything, but I just happen to know this right off the top of my head. There are 2 companies involved in this particular run of bullshit. And this is not one of them. This one is a new offender. So I opened it up expecting it to be one of the 2, and it wasn't. And I was kind of upset about that. I was like, God damn it. I thought I had this off. I thought I had figured it all out. And I hadn't. But also, like, 21 games came out in the last 2 days. I thought we were past that era. But I looked up there, and there's all these games that came out today. The worst offender of the Mind Journey is Aldora Games. If you or anyone you know knows Aldora Games, I'm not going to suggest like a Molotov. I am going to suggest a strongly worded note taped to a brick. The other highlight of games released today was, and I am not even fucking joking, I am just going to read you the name because that's all you need. Anime Girls, Lady Liberty. And it's a picture of an anime girl making the Statue of Liberty pose, and the Statue of Liberty as an anime girl behind her not making the Statue of Liberty pose.
I am saluting, James.
With your hands, right?
Of course.
Okay, I just had to check.
Yep.
Just wanted to be totally sure.
I'm disappointed there's not people wearing throwback Rangers jerseys, but there you go. That's just the way my mind works.
I'm going to guess the AI bot doesn't know about the Rangers.
No one's told it yet.
It's probably for the best. This is where I would tell you what the episode is. However, at this moment, the SQL database that's running Nintendo World Report is down.
Oh, it's all right. It's 888. Remember?
It is. You're right.
We narrowly missed it. We missed recording on the 8th because it was 1 week out. But it's 888 this week.
That's right. This is 888, which all the more appropriate for the woman who has 8 fingers on her hand and webbing and different lengths, and at least 4 knuckles on one finger. God, that image is haunting. It's just fucking haunting. On 887, we asked you, our esteemed listeners, to send us email. We particularly extolled listeners who have never sent one before or have not sent one in a while to do so. And we actually got a few of those, which is very gratifying. We got a good, like a much over average haul of email. So if I do a particularly aggressive exhortations to email, it does seem to elicit a evocative response. I don't know, I ran out of E things, and I know elicit's not E, it's an I. Sounds. Sibilance. No, sibilance is constants. Fuck. Alliteration. There we go. But does mean you should stop. In fact, it means you should keep going. Because when something's working, you should do it harder.
You declaring this the summer of just right for email?
Something, yes. He nailed it. The summer of just right for email. And you're saying, but James, we're halfway through August. Summer must be wrapping up soon. And I say summer is forever. And it will be in about, 10 to 15 years. So
yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Exactly. It's probably going to be stretching into October as it is. So.
I'm just getting a head start on it, baby. So emails, where do you want to send them? Well, I don't really give a shit where you want to send them. It's where I want you to send them. And that's RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. That's RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. It is our email address where you can send us your questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, games. We haven't gotten many games lately. And yes, I am making an exhausting face every time I say games, to play as email that you could send us. So that is RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. And when you send your email, we will read it. And then if we decide to use it on the show, we might use it on the show, or we might just not get through as many emails as we planned and not use it on the show, and then try to remember to do it next week. Look, we're not perfect. We try. But this week we have 4, I think, picked out, and I will read the first email because I forgot which one it was, and I might be setting myself up for failure. Lord Not writes, Dear RFN, I was listening to some discourse about how different factors around manufacturing and production can impact when Nintendo's Switch successor, whatever it may be, is ready for launch. And I begin to imagine the following scenario. The Switch successor's launch has been significantly delayed. Switch sales are bottoming out, and Nintendo caves to pressure from investors to reinvest themselves into mobile games. Imagine what Nintendo's mobile game strategy would look like in 2025. Feel free to consider what lessons they might have learned from their earlier forays into mobile gaming, i.e., that Dr. Goomba Tower and Dr. Dolphin may not have been as marketable as they had hoped. As a bonus, come up with one idea for a mobile game that would contribute to or boost Nintendo's reputation for developing quality products, and one idea for a more traditional mobile game, i.e. a cynical cash grab, meant to manipulate and exploit its user base. Stay intelligent and important. Well, that makes me feel good. That makes me feel good right here. So as of right now, Nintendo only really has a handful of their mobile games really up and running. Because some of them have come down over time. Mario Run's not really a service game, so it's just kind of up there. The one that is still making money is Fire Emblem. Shit, what's that one called?
Heroes, yes.
Is it Heroes? I can't remember.
Because it's like when they I remember it because they have that channel that's FEH,
yes.
The abbreviation. So yeah, I think the H is Heroes.
Yeah, you're right. It is Heroes. I always mix it up with the Musou game.
Warriors.
Yeah. So that's really the one big success they've still got up. They had the Dragalia loss. They took that down. They brought down, as is mentioned here, Dr. Mario. What was that thing called?
World Tour.
That's it. That Xander tried to play all of it after they announced it was coming down. He was not successful. They brought down Mitomo, which I don't know how
it was a long time ago. I mean, probably the best one that they've done. The one I got put the most time into, for sure.
I'm about to say, The one you put the most time into, yes. Best? Now, their involvement in the Niantic ones, I don't know how deep it is, but they're still up. And, of course, one of them was Pokemon, so...
Well, Mario Kart Tour is still around, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, and Mario Kart Tour, yes.
I gotta... Surely that one is making money somehow. I don't know what you do in that game, what you buy, but...
My understanding is the monetization is very non-aggressive. So I don't... well, yeah, but like the question of are they making money? I don't know. It's like, are they like how much money are they making with the monetization model that they've got? But with that being said, if they were to bow to the thing is, I'm not sure that mobile games are in a place now where they're going to get the same pressure that they got 10 years ago.
No, it is a little bit different because it was a bit more of a sort of gold rushy sort of attitude, it seems like, from the outside, as I've never really been, somebody who's played mobile games, but it did seem like, okay, this is where it's all going. There's these huge success stories, that right. You need to be in on it. Get in while it's kind of hot and make all this money. And of course, the other end of it was all the woes with Wii U and 3DS kind of just trundling along there, just about to kind of keep the business going while they were preparing the next hardware Switch, as it ended up being. But yeah, I mean, how long would the Switch successor have to be delayed until you got into a place that kind of bleak? I mean, that obviously, this is hypothetical, I know, but just for the record, I mean, it would have to be some considerable time. So yeah, it's kind of, you have to imagine that the pressure is similar, to what it was back then, rather than, the actual, the actual kind of, any actual pressure they might face in the future. Right. With the spirit of that, they did hit a lot of the biggest sellers in their sort of library, right? Like, obviously Mario side scrollers were covered with Mario Run. We had Fire Emblem, as you already mentioned, as more of a modest seller as a dedicated software, but still it's got more successful in recent times, and that ended up being one of the real success stories of the mobile strategy. Mario Kart, the biggest seller, they covered that. Animal Crossing also got something, right?
Yes, that, and that's still active.
Yeah, so they covered that. So the big gap really is Zelda. That to me, that's the one that's I guess you could say Smash Brothers, but that's like everything in terms of intellectual property. So like Zelda is the kind of the big kind of cornerstone of their lineup at this point that isn't present. And again, as we talked about last week with all things Zelda, everything's changed since Breath of the Wild kind of just completely raised the bar for how much the series can sell, and some of the things that people expect from the gameplay. So yeah, if you were going to do something Zelda, I guess if we're going to tackle the second part first, which is the cynical cash grab meant to manipulate and exploit, as Lord Not dictates, Breath of the Waifus. That's it. I don't think I really even need to say anything more than that, do I? Really?
God damn it. So, like, I thought, and I can't find any evidence of it, I thought at one point Nintendo had announced that like a Zelda mobile game was the next game, and they just kept saying that in light of other games coming out. But that's been so long and buried by so much other stuff on YouTube, on Google, I can't find it. But I definitely remember that being a topic of conversation, that there was one coming, but it's just around the corner. Maybe that was the Mario Kart one that was just around the corner forever. Pun not intended. But yeah, I don't know that they ever did announce one, or that they ever had one in the works, but it does feel like a 2D Zelda game would have been at least somewhat viable, but probably more puzzle oriented.
Well, again, if you were actually trying to look at perhaps the former part of Lord Knott's thing, where it's like, okay, what about something that's actually, would contribute to their reputation for making games that are not just as cash grabby as what everybody else is doing? Maybe adapting, some of what they were doing on the DS. Again, kind of went back to cover this a little bit last week, talking about the Toon Link games. And maybe kind of that would be one way that aesthetic could come back, is alongside that kind of touch-driven gameplay that they had there in the kind of late aughts on DS. That's that naturally enough, with the way the hardware has gone and the whole kind of strategy that they've had with software in general, it's kind of gone by the wayside. So maybe you could find a way to bring that back and do something interesting with it. That would seem somewhat plausible, but I guess it does run into that problem of if the reason why we're doing this is because it's like, oh, hey, we've got to monetize in the mobile space most popular things. You just kind of feel like that it has to have more of, the current Zelda, the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom Zelda in it than just let's kind of rework Phantom Hourglass.
I think what you could do that would be at least somewhat interesting is touchscreen controls. Like you could almost just lift the controls from the 2DS games, because you did very little with the buttons. And multiplayer online, if you really wanted to get spicy. So like a little Four Swords in there, and then just dress it up in Breath of the Wild iconography, and you could probably get away with it. I don't think you'd have to actually try to capture the Breath of the Wild-ness. Maybe there are items in-game that you can use that sort of leverage or essentially try to interpret those skills in order to solve stuff in the game. But I would say it would be mostly skin-deep comparison. But mobile games don't really need to be more than skin deep in a lot of cases. Like they're really trying to sell off the short experience, so that might be enough.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to Greg's point about the DS, I mean, there's a couple of. I'm surprised that there isn't a brain training mobile game.
Yeah,
and I'm also surprised that there isn't a Nintendogs. You want to talk about a cash grab game, or what you could turn into a cash grab would be Nintendogs and cats and goldfish and butterflies.
Imagine if you could
whatever.
pay to re-roll your cat stats.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just rife for, here is, like kind of Pokemon Go does this with, here's Pikachu, and here's Pikachu with the Santa cap. But what if you monetize that?
There was a Disney DS game I reviewed where they just took Disney characters and just blatantly copied Nintendogs.
Yeah.
And it kind of fucking worked, which is insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Nintendogs is actually, it's a great concept, right? I mean, there's not a lot of...
Yeah.
There's not a lot of depth there, but it's not meant to be. It's more... I always find it strange that they've never gone back to that, because it was really part of that ethos of, we don't have to make quote-unquote games, we can also make these experiences.
Yeah, I wonder about that. I mean, with this, obviously, the Nintendogs plus Cats was part of the kind of somewhat ill-fated 3DS launch lineup. So I don't know whether it's just this kind of, it's taking the weight of that, that it didn't sell that system at that time, and so maybe the feeling was, oh well, what happened on DS was lightning in a bottle. You can't kind of recreate it, because, a lot of stuff from DS has had some, fairly unlikely comebacks on Switch. I'm thinking about Clubhouse games, and Brain Training, right? It's had some kind of comeback. So, You know, like it's not like that entire era of like touch generations and, you know, kind of,
Right.
know, software, more like, you know, sort of software apps rather than traditional games, with goals and challenges and so forth. It was just left entirely in the past. But Nintendogs, that's just, yeah, I mean, it was, you know, that 3DS launch was a long, long time ago now in the first quarter of 2011. That's quite a while for them to leave something.
I wondered, to John, to your point on the Nintendogs, like, what if they went full, like, mascot character stuff in there, where there's, you know, various Nintendo critters rather than just dogs and cats?
Yeah.
Like, what if you could, I don't know, have a pet piranha plant?
Mm-hmm.
And whatever dumb stuff it would do, or Zelda, it could be like, it could be a like. I was gonna say like A, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yep.
Or what's the name of the spiky little shelled creatures in Mario? I can't remember. Not a buzzy beetle. But like the options
Just like
are
Spiny,
limitless.
right? A Spiny?
Yeah, like a Spiny. Yeah.
But
like,
I mean, you're overlooking the fact that everyone's going to want a pet Spike, obviously. I mean, that's the big one.
well, Spike's sentience. That's not. We don't want to deal with that. Not that he's real, but yeah, like you could feed them, you could play with them, you could pet their faces. So Fire Emblem characters as well. Just get it all in there, and you're good to go. Like that game's. Imagine if you could draw a Camila and then just have her in your Nintendogs game. That's going to make all of the money. So what I'm suggesting is that's a game that could start as a legitimate product. People are like, wow, Nintendo really gets it. And then immediately perv out into the money grab space. And I am here for it because people will have put their 5-star reviews on that game and then you sell the fuck out. You sell out so hard.
Mm-hmm.
You fucking sell out like nobody's looking, but they are, and they're looking because they're giving you fat stacks of cash.
Yeah, and those
Sell
people
out.
looking as well are shareholders, baby, making that fat loot.
You know what a sellout is short for, John?
Stock options?
Sold the fuck out.
Yeah.
We are out of stock here. It's also short for success. I think sellout might actually be more letters. Sellout is short for sold out, as in they sold out of beachfront property after I bought it, bitch. Look at all this money. Woo! I think the goal here is to make a game. I think this is the play. This is the fucking play. Make a legit game. Make a legit game that looks good and plays well, and people think this is a really good game. And you ride that modest success until the Switch successor is coming out. Not out. Is coming out in the present tense. It is in the act of being released. So we're talking that like 3-week hype window that is really on fire right before release, and then let's say 2 weeks after. And in that window, you press the features. You go into Launch Darkly. I'm just going to assume Nintendo uses Launch Darkly for their mobile apps. And there's a feature toggle that says Perv On. That's the name of the feature toggle. You hit that switch and everything fucking changes. The games are still just as good as they were before, but all that sketch content starts showing up. Stuff that's a little too spicy for Junior, but might just get his older brother willing to keep paying for roles to get his chance at the whatever Nintendo character floats his boat. And that's it, because people won't even be talking about what you did in the mobile game because they're going to be distracted by the Switch successor.
Well, this is is this kind of going back to Daisy's butt sort of thing you talk about? Was it? I think was that from Mario Tennis? Wasn't it Daisy's butt or?
She was wearing really short shorts, or really tight shorts. Yeah,
I remember that.
I mean, yes, sort of. Not.
Okay.
I wasn't specifically going to call out Daisy's posterior, but sure.
I mean, it's out there. You know, it's.
It was out there, yes. People commented on it.
It was a moment in the Nintendo sphere of ribaldry. Okay.
Not Daisy fans. It's never a moment for them. It's a life choice. But the idea is that when people are most distracted by the Switch successor's launch, that's when you go ahead and just like take the mask off and go for that money grab and just turn your what was previously like a cafe of entertainment into a den of iniquity. and just make that money.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. Like, you don't need to come up with a game that's I'm going to make some money on this game. You don't need that. You've got your game. I'm going to make some money on this game. And then you make some money. Like, you gotta evolve your horizons. You get the audience in, get them looking, get them watching. And then when they're not looking, you swing the pendulum the other way and they come back and they're like, oh, it got saucy in here. And I kind of like it. That's what you're going for. That's the play. That's the plan. So what do? I think the Nintendo option is right there. But then it gets weird and they start throwing in Fire Emblem characters because we've already been petting them in the treehouse. What else is new? I've often made jokes about the fact that the reason the Advance Wars series has gone on hiatus was there wasn't a huge depth of waifus. I think it's time to correct that problem. So you release that game. I honestly think Advance Wars would work really well in a mobile setting. I feel like it's short enough. You could make that game play really comfortably in a vertical format.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could. I think you could very easy pick up and play. Game's relatively straightforward to explain. And a mobile company would probably have cooldown timers, and you could like pay to get better units or pay to get the timer reset. I don't think Nintendo would want to do that. I think they'd want to charge you a rate for the game, and then you could pay to unlock or spend spins to try to win more premium characters or more commanders. Commanders, that's the word I wanted. And you could even have them have some of their own mission content just for the purposes of incentivizing them further.
So I just checked, and if they want the Wars Royale title, it seems to be free. So they should go for it.
Fuck yeah. But then once that Switch successor starts coming to market, well, the tenor of the new Commanders has changed a little bit. And I don't know if that's Battlefield attire, but it doesn't matter. It's making money attire. And love is a battlefield, John.
And money
love is a battlefield.
Always looks good.
That's right. Well, unless it's like a hyperinflated currency, then it looks silly. But love is battlefield, and if you don't really love your commander waifu, you're not really in the game. And you're not going to see her in the game because you didn't pay for the spins. That's it, man. That's the plan. So you could do your Fire Emblem. A Fire Emblem. Jeez, your Advance Wars. I feel like that's a really good fit, and that franchise is basically idle. I know they released that collection, but you know what I mean. I feel like Mario Kart has some opportunities for some alternate attire for some of the racers. I'm just saying, like, I'm
pretty sure they already did quite a lot of that, didn't they? In Mario Kart Tour, they had lots of people wearing like seasonal stuff, and I never played it, but they definitely.
I'm
talking about alternate attire.
Still,
one thing that they could do for Advance Wars is like some missions. Well, most missions don't have Fog of War, but the Fog of War ones could be set like a hot springs, basically.
Oh yeah. I love it. I love where you're at. I think this is genius. We're going to get you in the design team. I think you're onto something.
I'll just be there, standing there, like, make the women hotter. A job well done.
They're going to be like, holy shit, this man's a genius. All right, gentlemen, you did good work here today. Thank you, sir. But can we make them hotter? Oh my God, why didn't I think of that? I'll be back. And then you don't see them again. Then it's the equivalent of it's Mario time, but it's Advance Wars waifus time. And then when you come into work the next day, there's just new drawings on the board, and you go just nod approvingly as you walk by. Maybe give them a little thumbs up.
You just walk in and you say waifus, more like why not foos? All right.
Fuck! I hate that. I hate that phrase so much. I hate it.
You know?
Oh my God, it's so bad.
It is.
It's so bad.
It is, but yet so appropriate.
And I wrote it down. That's the worst part. Oh, fuck. If I name the episode Waifus, why not Foos? Oh my God.
Sure.
Somebody's gonna go like, "What the fuck is that about?" No.
More like White Hot Foods, am I right?
Oh my god. No, you're not. But also,
you're correct. That is accurate.
Let's be clear. John is not correct.
well,
No.
except if you're talking
right.
about if you're talking about Fire Emblem Warriors, then he is right.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It's like, because like every spring it's the bridal dress collection. Then it's them dressed as bunny rabbits collection. Then you get into the swimsuit collection. He's right. And that's upsetting, but it is what it is. And like, lean into it, but not until after people are looking the other way. It's a head fake. Hey, they're not watching now. They're looking at the shiny new console. This is when we put all the addictive stuff into the game and make that loot. What Nintendo franchise is available? Like, I'm trying to think what would be a good one that's not been touched for a minute. I do feel like we did finally touch this franchise, pun not intended, with Pokemon Snap. Like, we finally got a new Pokemon Snap on Switch. But you could have very easily done that as like an AR thing in mobile. And Pokemon Go has some of that. But it's really just doing like the Pokemon you're with. Like, if you could just like go mouse around, Jesus. Just go like pan your phone camera around and see all kinds of Pokemon in and around. I think that would be pretty cool. I don't know that you'd make a lot of money on it, but it's something you could in theory do. We've done Pikmin, we've done Animal Crossing, we haven't done Luigi's Mansion. It could just be like, I don't know. Like, I mean, honestly, it could just be another Niantic game, except it's ghosts this time. You need to go catch ghosts. Is it inspired? Nope. Not in the slightest. But it's easy. It's easy, and that's the important part. John, I have a challenge for you.
Sure.
I'm giving you the F-Zero license and a command to make a mobile game.
All right.
What is it?
I don't know. You know, it's like I feel like they almost already made this with F-Zero 99. Except you could monetize the hell out of that.
What if you brought F-Zero 99 to mobile?
Yeah. That's actually a strangely good idea.
You use the F-Zero 99 model, but you apply it to Captain Falcon's Twister race from Nintendo Land.
I enjoyed that.
So,
honestly.
You could, because it's more sort of, I guess, like, God, I mean, it's been absolutely aged. I never really touched it that much. Wasn't the most compelling part of Nintendo Land, but because that was motion based, right?
Oh, it sure was. With the whole gamepad, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, but also it's F-Zero 99 at the same time.
I actually beat it and it was miserable. But yeah, if you did that with 99 other people, it would be extra miserable, and I approve. That sounds amazing. Now, it did something really goofy where, like, you were controlling the track and the car basically just... Yeah, but, yes, effectively, this should be good. I'm trying to think what other Nintendo franchises out there that's not really on mobile at this point. I mean, like we talked about, Zelda's the big outlier.
Yeah, again,
Star
that's
Fox
the point.
Is an outlier.
The more niche ones. I mean, again, you could look at Fire Emblem and say, look, it doesn't have to be one of the absolute biggest sellers to intrude. It depends how much you want to break down, like, some of the kind of sub things. Like, I mean, Mario Party. Like some kind of Mario Party thing, like those are pretty big sellers, and they haven't specifically done a Mario Party thing, even though obviously they've done a fair few Mario related things.
It also depends, I think, how much you want to expand the Urban Champion verse. I think.
as far as it will go.
As far as
thinking,
many flower pots as you have.
If this period that we're at, this hypothetical scenario unfolds where it's like, okay, the Switch is just dragging on, right? Kind of like 3DS did, because, it has to. And therefore, we can expect even more ports of things, right? Because that's what you do when you kind of fill in time. And so this is finally what gives us Xenoblade X coming back, right? Is that they just have to, right? Even though it'd probably be quite a sort of challenging, not a quick and dirty kind of port situation by any means, right? To get it up and running properly and all the give it a chance to succeed. But what you also do is like some sort of companion app. You know what I mean? Which is almost like kind of like the Animal Crossing thing, but for living in New LA or whatever to go along with your campaign. So you get a bit of that connectivity for the real confluence of cursed Nintendo business ventures and strategies.
What if you could order pizza directly from your New LA app?
Yes, absolutely. The Just Eat app or whatever, but the equivalent for the Mira.
And it's one restaurant. It's only restaurant. See, I think it's coming together because
I'm just picturing a phone with a giant fucking button that's on the touchscreen that says deploy that pizza. And you're like, you're going to press it, aren't you? You're not going to say no. You haven't checked the prices, the toppings, the quality of the ingredients. Doesn't matter. You just want to deploy that pizza.
I'm trying to remember what game it was. It was a long time ago where you could just order Domino's directly from the command console. And it was just like you had an order basically already preset, and you just type /pizza.
Oh, and man, what was that?
It would just order the fucking pizza. Like, you just set up one time, like those Amazon buttons. You were supposed to be able to press a button, and Amazon will just order it for you. Just have that, but for pizza on the Mira app. It's just like a big, Greg nailed it. It's a big button that says move out, deploy that pizza. And you press it, and 10 to 15 minutes later, a fucking pizza shows up. You don't have to tell it where you are, or tell it what you're doing. It tracks where you are. That pizza is gonna you could start running. That pizza will find you. EverQuest. It was EverQuest.
Okay.
EverQuest 2 specifically, /pizza. It's so fucking stupid. But here's the thing. So we were talking about like how would Nintendo make a mobile game that exploits its customers for maximum investor return. But what if it was exploiting our business partners for maximum investor return? You could bid to be the holder of the rights to move out, deploy that pizza. You want to be the pizza of choice? We could even sell that right like market by market. So rather than like, we're just going to negotiate one big fucking worldwide contract, and if Pizza wins it and you don't live in Canada, well then guess what? You don't get the pizza. But what if we do it on a metro by metro basis? You can get more money that way because you have more players willing to make bids. Because you have local companies making bids too. Like it's small town. If you're in like, I don't know, Des Moines, like people could like, you could have local pizza shops also decide to make a play for that. The illustrious deploy that pizza button rather than just the chains.
That is great. I did not know that about EverQuest 2. I did not know that. Yeah. That is awesome.
Oh yeah.
But I swear I've seen that somewhere before. In something
possibly.
Like I feel like it's in some sort of like something maybe like a Burnout game or something like that.
Sure.
I've seen that somewhere.
What if Nintendo made a game set in the real world, which is very much not them. Mm-hmm. And by the real world, I mean New Donk City. And you're Mario, and you walk around New Donk City, but you can actually go into the stores now. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's the only thing you can do. But when you go into the stores, you're met with real merchandise from real stores. And because it's mobile, it can be updated all the time. And if you say you want to buy it, you get prompted by Google Pay saying, put your fingerprint here to buy it. And if you put your fingerprint here, well, you just bought a fucking scarf, motherfucker. Congratulations. Yep. You bought a scarf from Nintendo, but it's not a Nintendo scarf. You bought it from, I don't know, Hermes, because you walked into the Hermes store in New Donk City.
Yep. I like it.
I hope you have a second mortgage.
I like it. Terms and conditions are binding, people. You know?
Terms and conditions apply.
Yep.
You put your finger on that button, Nintendo just gets the seller's fee.
Yeah, it's a simple checkbox. Once you check that T and C checkbox and you log in, all sales are final.
All sales. But you could, to expand it, you could still move out, deploy that pizza.
Right.
But you could also get like other types of food delivered. Or you could get Mario could walk into an electronics store and buy buy a goddamn TV.
I think what you really have to do, James, is to really, for something like the aforementioned Hermes scarf. What you really you really should do is you should. I mean, since we're talking about a capitalist hellscape here,
I disagree.
What you really need to do is you need to have players input their salary when they sign up.
Oh.
And then you can block them if their salary is not high enough. You can say, "Oh no, sir, you need to go and make more salary in real life."
Are you suggesting this is the Ladders, but for Nintendo's social media services?
Sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it could be. I mean,
aren't.
Yeah, just if you want to come in here and buy this Hermes scarf, you need to get good in life.
For those of you who aren't aware, because you don't, this is the whole. Now you know what's possible. Let me show you what's required speech.
Yeah.
The Ladders was a dating site for people who make six-figure incomes exclusively, and you had to verify before they would let you in. It was very healthy. A very healthy website for very healthy people looking to establish very healthy relationships. Just to be clear, I do in fact own many fancy Hermes scarves and ties exclusively.
Of course.
I wear my Hermes pocket squares to bed every night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm a man of culture.
Yep, in stately Jones manner.
That's why I erected a 10-foot fence around the outside.
That's right. Yeah, I know.
My neighbors are very confused about it, but it's fine. I want to start calling it my stately manor.
It's stately Jones manor.
Oh my god.
I like it. I think it's great.
Man, I have a Matisse on my pocket square.
I feel like
$200 pocket square.
I feel like we've gone quite far afield.
No, we're fine.
I don't know what question was this again?
Right, Mario's mobile shopping app.
Right.
Look, he said make some fucking money. Let's make some fucking money. John, why don't you read the next email?
I can do that.
I think the introduction here is accurate. Yep.
Man, was that the first email?
Yes.
God, that's... Wow. I thought that was the third, I swear. Okay, Random Flashbang reads, "All right, you monsters, this is the question that first popped into my brain. If Chibi-Robo's shitty friends were tasked by Bandai to eliminate Sonic's shitty friends in the interest of some manner of corporate coup to prevent them tainting future Smash Bros. Tournaments, how would they go about it? Thank you for your detailed analysis."
I'm a little bit. I feel like I'm missing something about the Chibi-Robo cast. I mean, I've only played one of the games, the original game.
Yeah, me too. And that was 20 years ago, so I don't remember it. I did see someone on the Discord playing Park Patrol.
Yes.
Who said that the friends were shitty. So maybe it's that same person. They don't always have the same names on the Discord.
But I feel like I'm missing something because it just doesn't. I mean, again, for me, Chibi-Robo was 15 years ago, so
right.
I don't remember it with the greatest clarity, and I wouldn't say, the characters, outside of Chibi-Robo are amazing, but it's quite a lot of the game. Like, is the weird other characters that are present in the environment, and
Queen Spidor.
More of the I don't want to spoil it because maybe they'll bring it back one day. And very few people played the original Chibi-Robo. I think that's quite safe to say. But you know, the nature of those other characters, and you know, and what else was going on in the environment that you're in ends up being like a kind of significant part of the story. So I don't know why they would get singled out as shitty friends, but you know, Park Patrol, I never did get around to playing. There was also a subsequent DS game that did not get localized. I think it was the Japanese title roughly sort of translated something like Big Rich Sweep or something, like Lucky
Sure.
Sweep or something like that, which was a bit more, because Park Patrol, as is somewhat suggested by the name, like was more like in a garden and, kind of
Right.
taking care of flowers and stuff, which was not the first game, it was just in a home setting. And then I think that second DS game reverted more back to that, but wasn't localized. I've not played it. So, yeah, I, that's probably not the subject, because again, very few people probably would have played that. And then subsequently, you've had things like the Ziplash, the side scroller from the sort of latter days of the 3DS, and then the photo
Before
thing.
that, photo finder.
Yeah, so I don't know how much that includes any kind of support.
There was the airplane that Johnny loved in Ziplash. I can't remember what its name was. But yeah, there's not a ton of these these characters that would go out there. I don't know that Chibi-Robo needs the help though, because here's the thing: I don't need a fucking Francois to deal with Sonic and his shitty friends. Francois, by the way, is a marionette. All I need is Chibi-Robo and Garrot. And I think we've got the problem solved, because here's the thing. Sonic has to sleep. Chibi-Robo just needs to get wound up again. Sonic will always have to sleep. And that's when you get him. That's when you get him.
Chibi-Robo comes equipped with a Garrot, basically.
Yeah. I mean, what if he just sharpens his key? Think about it. You'd never see it coming.
No, he's not a wind-up toy. He plugs into an outlet.
Yeah, he's got the
plug.
cord.
I don't know why he said key. His plug.
Yeah, normally he carries it over his head, which like the amiibo obviously has, I think, in the same pose.
Mm-hmm.
Just what if that plug just happens to come to a nice fine point, or rather a nice fine edge. You think, he's going to go plug himself in. That says, oh God, he stabbed me in the neck. And then it's over. Sonic's only got one eyeball. You don't got to get them both. He's only got the one. I know it looks like he's got two, but he doesn't. I
mean, I was thinking Sonic was going to escape due to, unless he counts himself as his own shitty friend. I mean, maybe he's got, maybe he's got very kind of, he's got self-esteem issues, and he isn't a good friend to himself, because he doesn't really like himself very much. I mean, that could be the point.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair assessment. Like, I mean, think about how many, he's got the problem that, hey, you've stopped this guy from enslaving all the animal friends, but you've done it like 4 or 5 times. So have you really stopped them? Or
maybe, I'm sensing a narrative here that could be woven. It's like Robotnik's deceptions, right? He tries to convince Chibi-Robo that Sonic, every time he quote unquote frees these animals from being turned into robots, it's like, he wants to exterminate robots, right? Sonic and his friends are evil anti-robot people, so he thinks Chibi-Robo can do his dirty work for him.
There we go. And it's just, all he's got to do is convince Chibi-Robo that Sonic's not saving these animals. He's wrecking the robots that they like to live in.
Yep.
And now it's...
I kind of just like the idea of, sorry, I'm going back to earlier, like Sonic just feeling down on himself and just kind of looking back at how he was like 20 years ago when he was younger, like with all this attitude and shit, and just being like so, like finding it so cringy.
Yes,
at this point,
littered with
error. Oh my God, I was always just, I'm waiting. Like, what an asshole! I was such an asshole in my, in my tweens or my 20s or whatever it is.
Yeah, and then at some point, someone redrew me into a bigger arsehole. Because I mean that the sort of gangly, even at hardcore attitude sort of Sonic design from the adventure onwards, I guess. That happened as well. He said, "Look, I'm just a parody of myself now." It's although classic Sonic has come back quite a few times actually, because not just Generations, where they were kind of 2 separate characters, but also the recent the new side scrollers, Superstars. That's by some of the the old Arzest people or whatever, like that has classic Sonic as well, which I've made fun of the classic Sonic design as being somebody tracing over Felix the cat, but I still like it better than the gangly one.
Well, yeah, because the gangly one is just somebody traced over Felix the cat, but then gave him tube arms. Like, the gloves are even more. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. Sonic's bad. Sonic's
It's
bad.
lunatixification of Sonic.
Oh, God. That's Loon, for those of you who don't know.
Look it up.
I think Chibi-Robo could take most of them, and then Giga-Robo could take Big the Cat. You know, you're going to need to match up the size-wise, and he could do that.
Like, the problem with Big the Cat is that he's dumb as rocks. Like, you don't really need power to match up to Big the Cat. You just need to convince him that his frog's at the bottom of a lake.
Sure, but that's not very sporting, is it? So, you know, just you get the big, give Giga-Robo something to do.
Oh, that's true. That would be, that's the more important thing, is that he gets something to do rather than, you know, at the easy kill. I like this email because I just have this image of Chibi-Robo sneaking up on, I don't know. I'm going to go with Blaze. And then just, like, wrapping the cord around her neck. It's just like, oh, God, this is terrifying. But also, he's very small, so he's got to, like, push off on her shoulders to make it work. It's fucked up. But then again, Sonic characters have really small necks, so it might actually work out okay. I mean, not okay for them. Not okay for them. But, you know how you can avoid being strangled by Chibi-Robo, John?
How do I avoid it?
Yeah, do you know how to do it? It's very simple.
I don't know. How do you do it?
One $300 Hermes scarf around your neck. They're not going to be able to get it on because that plush cotton. It's just not going to. It's not going to collapse around the cord.
I thought you was going to say something like you're going to force him to be upgraded with the wireless charging kind of new model.
I was thinking that it was going to be something more technical than that, to be perfectly honest.
No, it's a callback. It's a callback.
It is a callback. It is definitely that.
I'm trying to make a connection. You know what? If I explain the joke, it'll get funnier.
Yeah,
so
I'll try to work in why not foo at some point later in the podcast.
If you do that, I'll clap. I'll clap because I got the reference. All right. Who wants to read the next email?
Sure.
Okay, go for it.
AJ writes, "How do?
How do what?
Oh my God. Oh no, I picked the wrong one. Okay, that's gonna be fun."
To be fair, I don't think I can do Yorkshire accent either.
I don't even know. I would need to listen to, because fuck me.
He doesn't do it very long. He doesn't do it very long.
I see the son's been playing that new computer game. Thank goodness you're here. Does that sound like anything?
Why did that? No, that got to like Rhode Island.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's like Stephen King. You know, so that's mostly where I know that when I start talking about young
kind of an ongoing joke between Karen and I that I cannot do any accent. It always sounds like what I just did. Like in English, I can't. Anyway, it's right good, isn't it? Is that a thing? I was chuffed to see God's own county. It's getting a bit more
Scotch there.
A little bit.
I was chuffed to see God's own county shown to the world. To the world.
It's shown to the world. That's the
world. Okay.
The problem is most of my quote unquote Yorkshire accent knowledge at this point is going to be the post Sean Bean people doing it on Game of Thrones. Which Sean Bean, actual Yorkshireman, but yeah, a lot of the other people probably Irish because he was made in Northern Ireland for a lot of it. So yeah, it's not going to be very authentic. But it's like like intit, world. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of that sort of skipping syllables.
All right, so the letter continues. I will refrain from using tyke from here on, as I'm guessing the American, the Canadian, the different type of Canadian, and the
different type of Candian, please.
Candian and the non-Yorkshireman, I don't even know how to pronounce most, will be confused. But it gets to the crux of my question. Now I can't read.
That's a French word, Guillaume!
I know. Well, no, is it?
Crux? Yeah. Well, at least it's French in origin.
Yeah, I think we've abandoned that. We gave it to you.
Fair enough.
Thank goodness you're here is uncompromising in how it shows the world the developers live in and know. While I'm not saying they think Barnsley is Barnsworth, they have a very strong regional identity that they have shared with the world in this game. The hyper-localism in the game, small reference pools, regional accents, music choices, video clips, the Yorkshire dialect being a language option, is something that you don't see in most games, as they want to be mass-market products that don't alienate anyone. Can you think of other games that have such a specific location used for its reference pool and structure? Did they alienate audiences to any extent? Could other hyperlocal locations be the source of any game? It's easier in the UK as it's a matter of like 10 miles, accents, behaviors, and identities change rapidly while other countries, USA, are much more homogeneous at that scale. Nearest I can think of is some JRPGs about particular areas of Japan, like The World Ends With You, Persona, maybe Like a Dragon, etc. I love Thank Goodness You're Here, as I am from this area of the world, and it felt wonderful that everyone else got to share in it. I did play the game in Tyke too. Cheers.
So I actually think he undersold the Like a Dragon series here. Like
Really?
it is so hyper local. So specifically Kamurocho, which is just based on an area of Tokyo called Kamukicho. They didn't even try to change it. Like I don't even know why they bothered to change the name. And here's the degree to which I mean hyper locality is in effect. When I was in Tokyo, I was able to navigate that part of town because I had played Yakuza games. I knew where the parking lot was because I had played Yakuza games. Because the parking lot is in the same place in the real world as it is in the games.
It's roughly similar in Grand Theft Auto games too, even though they're often a smaller, compacted version of something. Like, if you go to Los Angeles, you can't help but say, oh my god, I know roughly where things are.
This is Los Santos.
Yes, because I've played so much in Los Santos, to the point where you don't understand that until you go there, and then it's actually really weird.
So yeah, but that's like the geography, right? Like, I mean, like, I've played...
No, Venice Beach, all of these places, like the condos there, where things are placed, the Santa Monica Pier, all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I know, yeah. Like, I mean, like, the geography of the game and the buildings and stuff like that. So, like areas replicated in games is one thing, and it's, kind of rare and impressive, but I feel like AJ's reaching for something
but that's not what I'm saying about Kamukicho. And also the Sotonbori in which they just called Dotonbori again because they didn't try in Osaka. Like, those places it's not just that they look the same, it's that they feel the same. The activities going on around them feel the same. That there is the same kind of vibe and energy is in place. The same kind, like, the cultural stuff that's in play there. The average person walking around these areas, even though they are pink districts, is just an average person because they're in the middle of fucking town. But there are things going on that are like, you're only going to see them there in this town because it's the only place they're fucking tolerated. And it's well reflected in that. Like, there is a feel for how those communities inside of a larger city operate. Obviously, aside from the really insane shit. But, like, I'm going to give you an example. We were walking around was this in Kamakicho? It wasn't Kamakicho. We were walking around there trying to get to a cafe. This is just a regular fucking cafe. It was like a 24-hour cafe that had a bakery and coffee, which having that for 24 hours is actually a nice thing. That was pretty cool. And we took a turn and we stopped at a building because somebody had to tie their shoes. So we kind of like stepped out of the main path of traffic. And I looked at the sign of what was in that building, and every floor was a different establishment. And it was like, it was an office, and I couldn't, my Japanese was pretty shitty at that point, so I couldn't tell what kind of office it was, but I could tell it was an office. An escort service, and a BDSM art gallery. It was like the three, that's like, I'm like, that's very fucking weird. And then like, yeah, in the Yakuza games, that's kind of the shit that, like, you just wander into a building and that's what's going on, because that's just kind of the culture that settled into that little stretch of the country. But even more pressingly, like when they went and put one in the 80s, and when they made Yakuza 0, like they made a real effort to sort of represent what the culture of that particularly money flashy part of the city was like when the money was easy and everybody was making bank, and trying to represent, you know, how people acted culturally. What were the musical interests? What was the pop culture interest? How did people date? That comes up in a lot of the conversations with characters, like relationship stuff. Like, how do people get to know each other? What do people do for fun? Like, they actually spent a lot of time trying to capture that. And, like, obviously, I don't know what urban Tokyo was like in the 1980s on account of me being, like, not born yet. Actually, I think I was 1 when Yakuza 0 was set. But, you know, I have read plenty of people who do know going like, yeah, they kind of nailed it. But to take that series in a different direction rather than the geographic, there have been interviews with obviously no longer active members of crime families in Japan. I mean, professional organizations in Japan who describe characters from the Yakuza series not in terms of like, oh, that seems like something that could happen, but oh, I know that guy. And you're like, wait, what do you mean you know that guy? This is a fictional character. No, he's not. And like, yeah, there's parts of it obviously that are fictionalized. There's parts of it that are sensationalized, but there's parts of what that criminal underworld culture was that's more accurate than you might just get in like a Hollywood film. And part of that is because if you go look at Nagoshi, the series creator, as that series went on, you find that he's dressing himself more and more like a Yakuza member and using more and more bronzer to the point where he seems to think he is one. But part of it is because they made the effort to go find that stuff. So like, I think actually, yeah, that series in particular gives you a vibe of what that hyper urban part of Japan is. There is a game where you go to less urban parts of Japan, and I'm curious how that compares as well. But it's not just the geography, copying the buildings. It's trying to get like the weird cultural anachronisms of that kind of environment and putting them into the game, so it feels living and authentic. Because I don't think there's anywhere else in the world like Sotonbori. I've certainly never seen it. Like, yeah, there's plenty of places that have big, giant light up signs and stuff like that. But there's just a vibe in that place that's its own. And yeah, it's not exact, like, cause it's a video game, but it's legit. Like, it feels right. And it's not just, it's not just the fact there's a seafood restaurant with a giant mechanical crab on the wall. There is a seafood restaurant with a giant mechanical crab on the wall. And it moves, and it's kind of haunting if you don't expect it to be moving. But that's not what it's about. It's just about the energy of the place. And that's something else, Like, I've gotten nostalgia hits from that trip just for wandering around places I've been. Going like, man, it's not just looking at a picture. It's like, wow, I'm getting a little bit of that taste of what that was like just hanging out there. It's neat and cool, and I really appreciate that. Now, outside of those, outside of that example, outside of Japan, like, I don't know. Like, the thank goodness you're here is, yeah, I mean, it's using a lot of the stuff, but also it's leaning way into it. For comedy's sake, obviously. I just don't know what a good example of, like, I do think, AG's point about, 10 miles and you hit a whole different culture is more true, or is less true now, but there's definitely, prior to the homogenization that TV's caused, you absolutely could go 5 to 10 miles in the U.S. and encounter completely different societal structure. Because you might well leave the city and end up in a rural place 5-10 minutes by 5-10 miles, because people didn't have cars, and culturally it was very different, and the people who lived in the city didn't really interact with the people who lived out in the country, because why would they? Like, they don't see them. They don't come into town. The stuff's taken to town by a delivery person and sold. The area I grew up in was across the river from the city, and it existed because the rich people, right around industrialization, because we were a cigarette factory town, when industrialization got going and all the coal furnaces got going, the air in the city was unbreathable. And so the rich people who made it unbreathable retreated across the river to the south, because the wind blows south to north, and built nice stately houses for themselves where the air was good, and had the temerity to name the town Good Air, because the air they fucked up where it was bad air. So, like, yeah, at that point, you would have seen extreme hypercultural differences. But yeah, now, because of television primarily, there has been a homogenizing effect, and I'm sure that's happened in the UK as well.
Oh, yeah, but also, I would say, you're right, stuff like that will cause, like, that kind of homogenization, but it also will still, like, overstate it. What, you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, is like, if your impression of America is from American media, it's not giving you the full picture any more than people who would get British stuff, especially nowadays when there is more of a, because media's got more globalized as well. And, the people that make British programs and so forth are thinking more about selling them abroad than they used to. It's not, they're like sanding edges off in a lot of cases, and, they want it to be something that, they think is accessible to everyone. So they know, it's a business decision. It's just like, we want to sell this stuff, rather than like, we want to represent a particular culture or this, that, and the other. But yeah, I could see the appeal of having something that feels sort of relatively authentic because it's idiosyncratic, and especially in the increasingly globalized media world that we live in, those things are kind of not necessarily completely eliminated, but they are all going to be relatively rare, because it's about selling to as many people as you possibly can, in as many markets as you possibly can. And that certainly games is not the only, arena where that's true.
No, Canadian television is often made and packaged for sale outside the Canadian media market because it's not very big. You sure as fuck don't hear any Newfie accents on Canadian television as a result, because that shit's unintelligible to people who haven't been exposed to it. So it's not showing up.
I mean, oh fuck, what is that show? I never watched it. I watched like a few episodes and I couldn't get into it, but it was very popular. It's set in Ontario.
Letterkenny problems?
Letterkenny, yeah.
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 Like, either that Trailer Park Boys is the other one that I would say is hyper localized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, there's a lot of French Canadian shows that you'll never hear about because they don't get exported, or if they do, like, they just remake them. Like, there's this show called Plan B that's being remade. Like, it's still set in Montreal, but they're remaking it with some of the actors from the French version, but changed the main actors to be anglophones, anglophone actors from usually Ontario. So yeah, like there's like that language barrier. And in terms of games, like I did play that Kona game on the Switch. I talked about it on the show. I was kind of hampered by the fact that I don't know my history. And so, I was kind of learning about it's set in the 70s, if I recall correctly. Like, it was kind of a very eventful decade politically, and in terms of political terrorism and stuff like that. But also, like, if I recall correctly, like you would rummage through people's houses. It was kind of a game where like all the villagers are gone. Like, you didn't speak to a whole lot of people, but you rummaged through their stuff and found clues as to various drama that was happening in a small northern Quebec village. So that was interesting. And I mean, like, as far as I could tell, it was fairly true to how those northern camps look like. Like, I don't have a ton of experience going to those, but my dad did have, like, we used a cottage. My dad had a cottage that used to be really like the logging cabin that his dad worked at and then bought as the industry was declining. It was not a good investment, but at least we got some sort of cottage out of it. And as far as I could tell, like the old cans of soups or whatever, like the structure of the place, like it was all in the game. It seemed to be faithful to how things were back then. So, you can find that if you look for it. There's this newer game called This Bed We Made that's set in Montreal. I think that's where you're going to find most games that bother to set themselves in Quebec. That's probably where they're going to take place, because that's where the studios are usually. Otherwise, like, you're playing an Ubisoft game, you don't. They don't give a shit about putting Quebec or Canada in their games usually. Like, it goes
back to Greg's point. It's about mass market appeal.
Yeah, like, we've got a Tom Clancy license. We're not going to have the...
We're going to set this Tom Clancy game in Quebec City.
Yeah, like, Splinter Cell Shawinigan, like, we're going to go save Jean Chrétien from something, or kill him. I don't know what the plan would be now. Yeah, maybe. Moral choices in the game. But yeah, and there was also at some point, was it like a Deus Ex game that was being developed by? Yeah, it was like in Western Canada. I feel like it was set in Vancouver or something. Like,
I thought it was in Quebec, because I thought Montreal, because I thought you could see the fucking Montreal Olympic Arena
Stadium. Yeah. Maybe.
Which was a joke, because it's like 2066 and that thing's still there.
Right, yeah. But also, like, like the Montreal of the future is a megalopolis, just like, Neo New York or whatever. It's like, it's completely ridiculous. But
I think the idea was it had grown into all the other cities around it, and it's like, yeah, but they left that building? The building everybody hates?
Yeah.
What the fuck? It's tough, because I think one of the things, thank goodness, Year has going for it in terms of trying to be hyper local, isn't just that it's set in a specific region that has a strong cultural identity. That's definitely part of it. Although it also plays that identity up for laughs.
Yeah, it's a cartoon.
And it's identity that feels very foreign, even to, I would say, even to other people in the UK. It's that it's also set in a very small town. Like, there's probably 30 people in town. And so as a consequence of the town being so small, it's very easy to get to know everyone and for them to spend time to characterize them. 'Cause your point, it's a cartoon, but they can characterize them very quickly and then make a lot of jokes about the fact that they are who they are. Turpentine, and I can't remember what his travel companion is, the one who is consistently causing trouble. One of them's Turpentine. I can't remember what the other one's name is. They don't really do much but you get a vibe for who they are pretty fast. And so whenever you see them, you're just waiting for whatever the punchline is. Or in the case where they're just one's beating the other one on the stomach with a wooden spoon. It's just like, no, of course, that's exactly how that was going to go. They're able to essentially create characters in that small space and then use them for effect. Like if it was a large city, that's much harder to do because part of being in a large city is that sort of isolation in the crowd where there's a lot of people around and you don't necessarily know who they are. Like I know people who grew up in very, very small towns and they make it clear that like you can't get away with a goddamn thing because everybody knows who you are. Everybody knows who you are. And so like if you did anything, that was getting home immediately. That sense of like, hey, this is a small place and you can get to know everybody very fast really helps sort of hang this game together. So I think not just being hyper local, but also being hyper focused on a very small subsection of people, gives you more opportunity to expose yourself to the culture as more than just mannequins or automatons that walk by to crowd the space, even if they are wearing bondage gear because you're in the pink district. Like ultimately, they're still just mannequins that happen to be able to move around, ambulatory mannequins, as it were. Whereas in this game, it's not a matter of their ambulatoriness. Like the characters do move around, but they are interactable in a way that would not be possible with a larger scale, or if they were, the repeated interactions with those characters that give them depth would essentially instead be different characters where they would be very shallow. And that gives you more time to, like, the culture of a place is its people, and that gives you time to learn the people and therefore pick up more of its culture. It's more than just the accent, basically. I do still adore that there is a, I actually took it more as sectarian strife, although I don't know that Yorkshire really had much sectarian strife at any point between big pie households and little pie households. If it was set in Northern Ireland, if it was like Belfast, I would absolutely assume that's what they were going for. But, you know, no daughter of mine's going to be with a big pie house. Feels very stupid and is definitely not a thing, but it does give you like a sense of this is a cultural thing that they care about, even though I strongly doubt A, that there's ever been a place that prides themselves on selling the smallest pies, and B, that a family would ever eject someone from their home because their daughter's boyfriend eats pies that are simply too large, too grandiose. But I digress, because I think I already did. I struggle with coming up with anything else, though, because...
Well, it might not exist.
One example, I don't think it's perfect by any means, and having not played, thank goodness you're here, or this particular game, I'm not well positioned to draw the most accurate kind of contrast between them, but a game that was in, I think, previous Indie World presentations that came out towards the back end of last year on Switch was a Highland Song. Scotland, right? So yes. I think this is more about the landscape, though, than the kind of the human geography of a small town and the kind of culture in it and the people in it. But they did understand have like actual Scottish folk bands to make the music for it, which is quite a strong kind of component in the game and kind of feeds into the design and so forth. So I think, there's some overlap with what's being discussed there. Probably, consider it's more about the landscape and exploring it and so forth. You wouldn't necessarily have some of the same anxieties of like, okay, like with the dialect stuff of in the Thank Goodness Year, where it's like, okay, are we going to alienate people? Are we going to drive people off? So, but still, like, it's got a bit more sort of specificity, than you would necessarily expect from, a bigger something, the work of a bigger developer or a publisher. So that's, one of we talk about obviously so much of games and media in general, getting more dominated by, big companies and conglomerates and more globalized and all that. But there are, there's some broadening going on with, indies and you get the chance to have these more kind of idiosyncratic experiences so there is some of that. And I guess this would be an example.
There's an article I'm reading right now that deals with text adventure games of the 80s and 90s, specifically Behind the Iron Curtain, and how they often had an incredibly hyper-local focus, in part because you couldn't spread the games around because the Stasi or whatever the Czech secret police was would probably fucking kill you. And so there were these games that were about living in what was effectively a crumbling society at that point, expressed as a text adventure game that, like, at this point is that they're almost time capsules of what that life was like, because it was being written by people who were living it for other people who were living it. It's not like they're going to be able to sell it on store shelves. It probably would have gotten them killed, or at least arrested and detained, because late era communist dictatorship secret polices didn't play, as it were. So I do think that's part of it, though, is like this works because it's a cartoon, and its hyper local focus could be kind of it's I don't know that I would say it's the butt of a joke. I think it's laughing along with the joke. But I can see where early on this might have been much more of a thing, for the same reason we talked about with TV. We talked about it last week. We talked about how the home computer scene was just different in Europe. Like, it just wasn't the same thing. So, like, you had machines that had, like, this is the popular machine for playing video games in France. Where else can you buy this thing? I don't know, maybe Belgium.
Yeah. And I think, too, I mean, going back to those probably early, I don't know, probably in the 80s, I'm thinking, or even during the shareware era in PC gaming. At that time,
literal shareware, not just code for demo.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there was a time, around like in the early 80s where, especially with PC games, there was no way to distribute them widely, really. So this is how shareware even became a thing, is because you would go to meetups and you would literally, people would distribute their games in like Ziploc bags, right? And so that was a whole thing. So I could see at that point probably having more localized games where you knew your game was only going to travel so far. Like, maybe you're just doing it, you just intended your game to be seen in Southern California, so therefore it reflects that. I don't have any examples of this, but that is the time
California
period.
games.
California games, yeah. Like, California games isn't really particularly local, but there's a lot of in-jokes in there for California, or at least what people think California is at that time. Especially in the 80s, what the kind of vision that was sold, especially on television, of California. At that time.
Yeah. Like, I'm sure, thank goodness you're here, has a certain amount of that, of like, we're putting in here what people from the outside think a Yorkshireman is like, versus what someone from there would actually see as, that's me. But, it is still trying to represent that place. I think out of love, and I think California games, even when the bird poops on you, it's still out of love.
Yeah. For sure.
They legitimately care about that culture that they were trying to represent in a game to the best of their ability.
Mm-hmm. I guess.
Actually, I think
yeah, thinking about that though, I mean, just in terms of hyper-localism, what about sports games? The way that they try to recreate stadiums, for example.
I think from the geography standpoint, yeah, I wonder if the what they've done with the most recent college game actually represents the culture a little bit better. Because it seems like they've really leaned into not just like, well, they're going to wear the right color uniforms, but trying to represent the unique cultural attributes of, 100 and I don't know how many we're at now, like 132 universities. Because actually where this kind of hyper-localism still does apply in the U.S. is on college campuses, because these campuses are big, they're sprawling, they're isolated from the larger community, and they develop their own sense of culture in place.
Yeah. I mean, I know in FC25, for example, and I say that just because I've been playing it a lot recently, or FC24, FC25 coming out, but I mean, they have very hyper-local stuff, like the actual chants from the stadiums for the particular teams.
Yeah,
so,
like there's...
which mean nothing to you if you don't live there. Or know, or have been to those games.
It's macro-local in that they are sampling from all of these places just enough to give you local flavor without deep diving like something like Thank Goodness You're Here is trying to do. And I think that's what makes it unique, is that they spend the effort to deep dive on one spot.
Yeah, exactly.
To such an exhausting degree. And it's kind of a game that's anachronistic in time anyway. So like the cultural milieu they've created probably doesn't reflect any specific moment in time. There's things in here that seem quite modern, but it's also pre-decimalization of the currency. There's travel agents, so it's a travel agent on like the high street, so it's not recent, but also people have cell phones, but they don't use them. So like it's a weird cultural fluffiness of when it could have been, but that also might be part of the message they were saying about like how these places feel relative to other parts of the country in terms of like how in tune to the time they are. I don't know, maybe interpreting something that's not there. But you can run a man's hand through a meat grinder, so I guess that's cool. He seems okay about it.
Yeah.
So, I will say that game is violent. If like there are some moments of like, oh, that's kind of violent. But it is cartoon violence. It isn't like gore. I say that after I said they ran a man's hand through a meat grinder. You don't see it. If it makes you feel any better.
The ham thing is a little bit body horror, I'll say.
It's a lot of it body horror. It's haunting. But yeah. Just make people think this game's all fun, good times, happiness. No, there's some stuff. There's some stuff that's not okay. Anybody else?
No, I mean, like, probably don't know enough about other specific places to know if it's hyper-local or not. Or there are some games I haven't gotten around to and are probably very specific, and I just wouldn't know it, again, out of ignorance. Like, the developers of, what's it called? 1000x Resist? 1000 times Resist? Like, they're a... God, I didn't do any looking up here, but they're... Are they in Taiwan or
Hong
anyway,
Kong?
Like they seem to be Hong Kong.
Is that Hong Kong? I've heard other people speak about this game and quite favourably, but I have not played it myself. But I believe it's to do with Hong Kong.
Yeah, and their games have sometimes a political flavor that sometimes has gotten them banned from. They had to withdraw one game from. Every store, I think, because China didn't like it or something.
Oh no, absolutely not. Are they still in China or did they leave? Because that feels like it might have been time to get out.
Yes, and they made 1000 times Resist after that, so they're fine. I assume. But that game is also kind of about like the. I don't know. I read some reviews very quickly. I saw the word diaspora a lot. I'm not sure what it means, so I guess don't listen to me. But I'm sure there's like some hyper-specific stuff in those games that would just go over my head, if I were to play them.
Absolutely. I think some of that's kind of fun though. Like,
yeah, it's a way to immerse yourself in another culture and point of view and. Hopefully discover something new. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right. I think we're going to take a break here. Because we've been going for an hour and a half. We got through 3 emails. That's kind of an accomplishment. I did say we had 4 and that we probably wouldn't get through one because I made a joke about us talking too long, and we did. So, hey. We're going to take a break. We come back. I think we're going to do a little bit of new business. But we'll figure it out on the other side. So please stay tuned. we return. We're going to do a little bit of new business. I'm going to pass this week. I played some stuff, but nothing you guys want to hear about, nothing I want to talk about. Instead, just played Balatro, which I've already talked about. But Greg actually has a game he's been talking about that's got an update this week.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd be talking about it again. To be honest, I've kind of wrapped up on it, but we had the surprise announcement from Spike Chunsoft, yes?
Yep.
That, the Mameda and Bakeru, the sort of Goodfield developed Goemon kind of throwback, with the serial numbers filed off or whatever, is getting localized outside of Japan, simply Bakeru now, and quite soon, actually, I believe, right? And they put a demo up as well and everything, so it was like, okay, this is happening.
Yeah. Now, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but last week, when I brought up the fact that someone had written to Johnny Metz about buying the NES cartridge of Pinball Quest, you said that, and then, it got released soon after, you said that this happens to you too. Did you expect that
I think it was something
week?
it was something like, I'm glad it happens to other people, the insinuation.
Yes, that was your exact quote. I heard it today.
And so, but it's still happening to you.
Apparently. Yeah, I was not thinking of it as a phenomenon strictly of the past. Perhaps not necessarily expecting it to manifest itself this quickly and with this particular game, I have to say, because again, to risk of repeating some of the things we've talked about this game before, Goodfield published it themselves in Japan. So, right. I mean, that again kind of felt like, well, if you couldn't find which is not something they normally do, obviously, a lot of the time they work with Nintendo generally, a very big publisher, and so, to be in a situation where they were publishing it themselves in Japan didn't suggest there was a great deal of interest, even just within Japan, for this, very kind of, Japanese product. I mean, to somewhat connect back to the discussion that we had in the previous segment, it's not terribly specific, because actually they represent each of the 47 prefectures of Japan in this kind of bizarro world version of it in Mameda no Bakeru. But, Japanese culture and geography is a big part of the appeal here. I mentioned it, I'm sure, when I spoke about the game, the way that a lot of the sort of extra collectibles, your kind of star coin type stuff are, sort of like pennants for each place and particular objects or, kind of cuisine or various things that are associated with that place. And then one thing I've been able to see, I mean, I basically knew this is what they were, but, one of the things I was able to kind of see just with the curiosity of okay, let's look at the demo in English, to see, some more of these things that I couldn't understand before, just for the few kind of levels that they provide. And they provide basically the very first level, I think is one that's labeled as easy. There's one from still early in the game, but a few more levels in that's kind of normal. And then they have a giant boss battle, and I think a race as well, to give you a sense of the different modes and all that. But playing one of the kind of regular platform levels, what you could see, again, you could kind of tell anyway, but you actually get to sort of see the exact kind of information they're conveying. In each of the platform stage, you have 5 of these little people that, or whatever they are, they're creatures, I'm not sure, but they're in these sort of costumes that make them look like small poos, essentially, very much like the seeds, the Korok seeds in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, but sort of as a mascot, like a guy in a mascot costume kind of version of that, but small. And they tell you sort of bits of trivia about the prefecture that you'll play in the level in. That's what those things are. And that's a sort of another tier of collectible. You've got these kind of capsule toy things. They're kind of the top tier of collectible. And then the trivia points are the next tier and stuff. So that's the thing. And I did mention this, I'm sure, when talking about the game at length. It's going to enhance your ability to enjoy the game a fair bit, I think, to actually be able to understand these things. It seems like a lot of, and this is something from other Goodfield games. the charm is a lot of what they kind of are going for, right? Like, it's not necessarily
Right.
exceedingly challenging, but or sort of advanced in a design sense. But certainly in the past, like with aesthetics, when you're talking about Kirby's Epic Yarn and Yoshi's Woolly World and things like that, there's a great deal of charm. But here, I think it's this sort of wacky kind of take on, expressing these different sort of elements of, different parts of Japan that they, presume first and foremost, they would have been, trying to appeal to a Japanese audience, but now they've clearly, found a partner in Spike Chunsoft who feels there's some sort of upside here in, localizing it into English. I mean, as you'd expect, I think all the voice work is staying in Japanese. I mean, it would be kind of, just a bit of a clash, a bit of, say, sort of dissonant for it not to be anyway, really, given how much they're playing up the setting and the culture and everything. So, you've got all this stuff now that you'll be able to comprehend. I think, that will, definitely make it, I think, more people able to enjoy it than just with playing the import. But also, it seems like perhaps, Spike Chunsoft, kind of, taking this on, perhaps they funded, I don't know, maybe Goodfeel were just kind of working on this stuff behind the scenes anyway. I mean, I think there were some updates and DLC for the Japanese release of the game as it was. But as they mentioned in the trailer, there have been sort of additions and tweaks made. In particular, just what I observed playing the demo, the kind of combat of the game. They seem to have wanted to make it snappier, right? So there was already an element of this in the way it worked already in terms of, obviously your kind of base combat is you using, the drumsticks, like kind of tonfa, but it's like, there was an element of like homing to the attack, right? So it's like if you're generally pointing towards an enemy within a reasonable distance, you would kind of snap to them if you pressed the kind of buttons. The default scheme is the left and right shoulder, the front left and right shoulder buttons, but there are other options, and which I would imagine be desirable if you're playing with straight up Joy-Con, because those buttons ain't great, to be relying on for combat. But what they've done with this demo that you can see pretty much straight away is they've heightened that quite a lot. So it's like now, if you're in the middle of like beating up one enemy and then kind of, you keep attacking, you will do like a dash across to the next enemy, even if it's quite far away, and just start beating them up. So and I mean, I talked about this. It's an easy game. It didn't need to be made easier, that's for sure. However, I assume it's more about just making it faster, right? It's just like, no, these things aren't difficult to beat, so let's make it quicker. To like I said, some of these enemies they're not even necessarily like particularly aggressive or anything. You just kind of beat them up to farm them for like the meat to transform into other forms and stuff. So yeah, it could be a logical change because, as I mentioned, I think, some of those levels are a bit more spread out. The pacing isn't as tight and stuff, so maybe it'll just tighten that up a little bit. There's only so much it could achieve, but it could be a kind of adroit change that. So I'm happy to see, that it's been, picked up and more people have the chance to play it. For the people at Goodfeel, obviously, it's clearly a passion project of a sort, so, for them, even if not that many people end up actually taking up the opportunity to buy it, who could say, but, it might be a bit of a tough sell, but I think they will be happy that at least there's more people have the opportunity to play it in different territories. And, I think I wouldn't say it's my favourite Goodfeel game by any stretch. I think it is enjoyable, and it will be a fair bit more enjoyable in this form with the localization and all that. So, good news all round, I'd say.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually interested in getting it. It's coming out on the 3rd of September, so about 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, it's really close, isn't it? Again, that's the other thing that's surprised, just how much it's sort of kept under the hat, really, because it must have been, in the works for quite a while.
Yeah, because they had to localize the text. That's not overnight. I wonder if they were just struggling to pick a date, because there's a bunch of stuff coming out at the end of August. And I wonder if they were just like, okay, where can we stick this thing where it won't just get swamped? Even then, it's still close to a bunch of stuff coming out, so. they did a nice job on picking images for the eShop though. Like it looks very bright and colorful. Which I mean I know it is, but like it's they had a good assortment of visually appealing stuff.
Yeah, that's, it was going to be the way you're going to sell it. It's just kind of this bright, full of personality kind of game, and the way that with the demo, they could show, there's different kinds of stages and things. That's really, I think that's the best way you can sell it. How much it can do is, very much to be seen. But I think, they're giving it maybe, having an announcement where you get maybe a certain amount of spike in awareness of like, oh, that thing that people assume wasn't going to come out in the way, it's here, isn't that a good thing? And then release it soon after that when maybe there's still some, crest of a wave. They're all relatively or relative scale here, but it might be the best way to do it.
Yeah, it's not a shadow drop, but it's probably the next best thing. All right, anything else?
Other than that, no, I did play the demo for the next Tengo project game. So they've done a few of these kind of not exactly like straight out remakes, but kind of revivals of and like enhanced versions of games from the past, like Wild Guns and it was the Ninja Warriors one. I think it was the Ninja Saviors, maybe is what they called it in the end. And,
something like that.
Pocky and Rocky as well. And all of these you've seen, very sort of, kind of warm receptions for, a lot of the time, about the graphics and, what they've done with those games and stuff. So, but I've not yet actually got around to playing one of them. But when I saw the demo was on the Japanese eShop, I think last week, and it's only just gone up elsewhere. So I'd seen it on the Japanese. I think it's the Japanese eShop. I mean, there's still plenty of nonsense on it, but I do look at it sometimes just because it feels like marginally more manageable than looking at the Western one.
It feels like there's at least less of the just dumps from image generators.
There's still lots of stuff that you have no interest in. As I mentioned, my primary way of interacting with the eShop is essentially having shortcuts to the major publishers through the wish list function like that. That is a lot of what I do. But yeah, because I've had, some of the, kind of, those previous games on that watch list kind of thing, then, I kind of found, the demo was already on the Japan eShop through that. So I just, played it for a bit. It's like, pretty brief because I don't think the game itself is going to be terribly long. It is in that kind of throwback to, is that Jalico? Or Natsume? Sorry, Natsume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shadow of the Ninja. So, yeah, with this, it's just kind of, I've got to say, graphically, straight away, impressive stuff. Like, it's what you'd expect if you look at those other games, right? It's like a high level, like kind of detail pixel art kind of look, where like the characters themselves are, quite colourful and cartoony. But the actual like environments and the some of the enemies and stuff are like very detailed, much more in that kind of like Neo Geo kind of aesthetic, than just like irregular 16-bit kind of aesthetic. And I guess the main wrinkle that I kind of picked up on in the gameplay is obviously these sorts of games from that era of, side scroller, action, Castlevania, Ninja Gaiden and so on. They would usually have some kind of areas to kind of probe for secrets of some sort or another, even if they weren't particularly like games based on exploration. But in Castlevania, it'd be to find the wall meat to heal you. Sometimes a one up or just like extra points that would help you earn your way towards an extra life or something. But in this case, what you've got a lot of the time is these kind of containers that have like optional sub-weapons. And there's just seem to be loads of them, like loads of different types of things, clubs and swords and all these different things. And it does seem like, obviously, you can find them and then use them, but they're kind of limited number of uses. So, at first it's kind of like, is this, some of it's his own reward, just like, probing where things might be hidden in a stage and just seeing what you get out of them. But you kind of like, well, how much of the point is there to finding all these sub-weapons? Because a lot of the time I was just wanting to use the primary one because I'm playing a demo. I just want to get used to the kind of core competency of the character, right? But I think the real part of it is that, like, there's loads of these things. And when you find one and you take it, like, you beat the boss at the end of the level, you kind of bank it. So it's like, okay, this is now unlocked. And then if you were to come back and start the game, from the beginning again, you would have the opportunity to kind of purchase it up front as part of your kind of array of weapons if you find one that you particularly like. I guess it's a little bit like there's some version or mode in one of the Fantasy Zone Sega Ages where, like, instead of just like the money building up in that particular run, you kind of build up a bank of money. And so then when you begin a game, you could go to the shop and really, arm yourself to the fullest, in Fantasy. So, to make it easier, essentially, right? A lot of Sega Ages games had like modes like this, to kind of some kind of feature that would, like, kind of give you more options, give you more flexibility and make it easier. So I think it's a bit like this in terms of here with Shadow the Ninja, you can sort of build up a pot of money and then also build up this bunch of options if you can get to the end of a level with a certain sub-weapon still available that then you can choose to buy at the start of a different run and kind of take it with you and stuff. So kind of interesting, it's some sort of, first of all, just in terms of the offensive options that it's going to present, because, they are quite different. As you'd expect, you've got some that are going to do huge amounts of damage, but they're really slow and you've got to get close. But that can be very useful against a boss because, they kind of, the bosses that you've got here, very sort of classic where it's like, okay, there's a window where you can do a fair bit of damage. And maybe with one of these sub-weapons, you could do an enormous amount of damage in that window, to make the boss a bit easier, for instance. So, and just also providing an incentive to explore, to kind of, feel the collector kind of mindset, right? Of just, I want to see all the different sub-weapons in the game, that you might be able to kind of, collect together. So yeah, interesting. I think what to keep an eye on. Definitely, looking good. Presentation is strong. I guess you just have to see how much that kind of stuff really contributes to the gameplay. Whether you feel like the gameplay evolves, it's largely going to be down the level design or whatever. But to see whether it's kind of, feels like it's extraneous, kind of frippery, all these extra weapons, or whether there's something really there.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
No, that'll do it for me.
All right, Guillaume.
Yeah, not much. I keep making, like, trying to start stuff and making bad choices. I launched actually the GBA NSO app, and I decided I landed on Golden Sun, the first one. I played about 30 minutes of it. There's no way I'm going back to that save file. Like, it's just not happening in 2024. I'm not going to play Golden Sun, the first one. Like, I played it before, and I never played The Lost Age, and I thought, well, I gotta play the first one and get that password if I'm going to play The Lost Age. But I'm never going to do that. That's not going to happen. So
you'll never find out what happens to Isaac.
But did people who played The Lost Age find out, or was it just another kind of okay? It pissed me off so much back in the day that, like, it was. I was like, this was sold to me as an RPG, but I only got half an RPG. I was supposed to light the 4 lighthouses. I only lit 2, and the game is over. What is this?
It is very weird that it was just like, we can make this 2 games. Yeah, it's a little Battle of 5 Armies for my taste, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this point, I guess I'm used to it, to this kind of stuff in video games, but yeah, I guess that was my my origin story as an angry gamer on IGN message boards.
How could you be angry with Sakuraba screaming tunes in your ear for 30 straight minutes?
So so I'm not gonna go back to that. And then I tried, like we mentioned recently, Link's Awakening, or I don't know, there was Zelda talk. I was like, maybe I am ready to replay Link's Awakening. Back when the remake came out, well, I didn't play it. I just watched Karen play through it, and that was enough for me. And I said, you know what's a game that I'm probably never going to play again? Link's Awakening. And again, like, it's kind of the same thing. Like, I started it, and I'm like, yeah, I think this confirms my choice of not going back to it. I know this game by heart. There's no joy to be had playing through it again anymore. So, yeah, that's basically it. Other than that, like, I dabbled with Crimson Dragon on Xbox, which is a Panzer Dragoon-like made by some of the team that made Panzer Dragoon. But it's not nearly as good. It's an older Xbox title that was meant for Kinect, and it originally had microtransactions in it, and they got rid of those eventually, but it didn't make the game any better. You're kind of meant to unlock stuff by playing through the same stages over and over, getting currency, and replaying the same stages. Eventually, you might unlock different paths through the same stage, but it's always going to kind of look the same. And yeah, like, to me, like a rail shooter, like Panzer Dragoon, like Star Fox, like, part of the appeal is that you might have to play through a level over and over again, but it's because you keep dying in it. Like, you need to get better. But in this case, it's more like, well, you need to grind so that you can see more of this very short game. And I'm like, right, well, this, I don't want to do that. And apparently this game is not short enough for me. Like, if you're gonna force me to play through the same levels over and over again, but make my dragon so slow to move that you can't actually dodge anything until you've upgraded it, that's not any fun for me. So I'm probably not gonna go back to that either. But I probably paid like $5 at some point on a sale, but that was, I was curious about it, and now I've played it, and I should probably have read the reviews first, and that should have been enough to satisfy my curiosity.
That's fair.
Yeah, and other than that, yeah, there's just more Yakuza. I got stuck on chapter 5 for a bit. I finished the Majima chapter.
Yep.
And then
I know that is.
Yeah, I did so I went back to playing as Kiryu, and basically, like, all that chapter is like, some guy goes to, like, clean up some office or something, and so he says, like, go, fuck around town, like, just do some shit, and then come back. And what I didn't realize is that to trigger okay, you can come back now and finish this chapter, you had to look at your pager, which is just a thing in the menu.
Yep.
And I never did that. And so I was just going around town, eventually, like, doing all the mini games, trying to get better at them, just beating up dudes in the streets, eventually finding a few side stories, but Kiryu doesn't seem to have as many as Majima did. And so, like, just getting bored, and, like, for hours, actually, like, I was like, well, I'm not going to look this up. This is stupid. Probably at some point something is going to unlock if I do enough of whatever the game wants from me. But what the game wanted from me was to look into the goddamn menu, look at the pager, and that's all. So I actually, so it took me forever for a bit. Like, if I hadn't figured that out, I would be bitching right now about how I don't know what the game wants from me.
And I would have immediately gone, did you check your pager when it beeped?
Yeah. And I had not. So, but now that's done.
Because you said chapter 5, and I was thinking, it's the pager.
Okay, so okay. So this feels, okay, so I'm not the only one then.
You're not the first person, no. It does beep, and it does throw, and, like, Kiryu makes a comment, but if you're in the middle of something, you could totally miss it. Yeah,
and I guess I did. But also I wasn't really, before that, like, it does tell you about the pager, but then, like, they force you to go look at it. And in this case, I don't remember Kiryu acknowledging receiving a pager message. And, certainly the game didn't stop and say, like, you should look at the pager.
No, it doesn't stop you. It's just like beep beep, and like Kiryu will have text at the bottom of the screen of him talking to himself, and that's it. So
the upside of that is that I did once I started chapter 6, you've unlocked at this point the I forget the name of it, but the mini game, the business mini game where you buy up properties and collect from them, and so you can recruit from side missions from people that you've helped. You can recruit them to become managers and security for your business. And so I had like a whole line of people waiting outside my office, just waiting for me to talk to them and be like, yeah, I'm like, okay, you should work for me. Yeah, sure. Like you had that ring of Burusera, I don't know, like selling panties. Like you were forcing your classmates to sell their panties to pervy old men. I guess you'd be a good manager for my.
She can motivate her employees.
I guess, yeah. So anyway, so that was fun. Like I had already done all that work, and and one of the recent sub stories was I helped a kid buy a pervy magazine from a vending machine. And so it's pretty funny because you're like, he wants this vending machine, like oh, but my mom was so angry when she found out that I wanted something from that vending machine. But now I came back on my own by train. I had saved up all my money, but this vending machine, it's in the dark corner and I'm scared. Can you just go buy this magazine for me? And then you
because the kid doesn't know what's in it.
Yeah,
basically.
No, he doesn't. He just thinks that the vending machine is cool. And so
mysterious.
Yes, and so you accept like an idiot, and then you realize, oh shit, I'm about to buy an adult magazine for a little boy, and then like it just becomes this whole thing of like, okay, these ladies are coming out for their like smoke break, and they're right next to the machine, and then like some people behind you are looking at you, they're seeing you just like peeking in the not the
they're
hallway,
very aware of what you're doing.
Yeah, they're like, oh yeah, there's that machine there. This guy must be there for the magazines. Oh, but why does he have this little kid with him? Like, don't they,
What's wrong with him?
Yes. Does he have no decency? And then like your employee from the business shows up and, hey, like, what's up? And you're trying to play it off like, nothing, and then, the mini game is basically like, it's a stealth mission. You got to make your way to the machine, without being spotted by these various women. And, but why do you even consider, like, at some point he does say, like, to the boy, oh, you know what? Like, now that I know what you want to buy, I'm not going to buy it for you. But then the boy is like, oh, like, adults, they always make promises and then they lie, they break them, they lie. Am I going to grow up a liar like all the other adults? I don't want to. And then Kiryu has this moment of like, it is true that I've been disappointed by adults as a kid when I was growing up. Maybe, okay, I guess I cannot renege on this promise that I made, so.
I love Kiryu. He's so stupid.
Yeah.
He's beautiful. He's a beautiful creature.
So that's the whole thing. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, but I did spend way too much time just running around the town, just not really doing much. I wish I had figured out how to finish Chapter 5 much, much, much earlier. But now the game has gotten going again, and I'm going to be checking my pager more regularly, I suppose. But that's basically what I've been playing.
Okay, cool. John.
Yes, picked up, it's on Game Pass, so I picked up the Doom and Doom 2. It's I think the title is actually Doom plus Doom 2.
Right.
And this was
Together
released,
at last.
We're together at last, and this was released during QuakeCon, which just was this past week.
Yep.
And so this is, hey, if you want Doom Overload,
Doom 2.
this is it. Well, it's much more than just Doom and Doom 2, James.
Oh?
It is Doom 2, the master levels for Doom 2, and then a whole bunch of extra sort of like I guess you could call them mod packs, but TNT Evolution, and these are all, probably things with, you play through a number of levels, like they're extra expansions to Doom. Evolution, the Plutonia Experiment, No Rest for the Living, Sigil, and actually, and what they did for this collection is they partnered with Night Dive Studios, who of course did this port, and also Machine Games, who is the famed creators of all the Wolfenstein games, the new ones like New Colossus and such. They created a new expansion called Legacy of Rust. So it's like a new level pack for it. So there's tons of content here. And also there's a deathmatch map pack, that expands the total deathmatch map count to 43. So this is pretty much the complete collection of everything that was ever released for Doom 1 and Doom 2 and then some. So yeah, if you want Doom, this is it right here. Also, other stuff that they've added has cross-platform play. So this is out on Xbox Series XS, PC. It's out on PS4, PS5, and Switch. So it has full cross-play. It also has, let me just see here. I'm just kind of going through. Yeah, it has the id Vault, so it has a lot of kind of like a museum mode where you can go through and see a lot of the early, monster sprites that they have, and some that didn't make the games, some that were cut, some that were going to be used, but then were actually used later on or used elsewhere. Very, very cool. Very cool stuff. So it's a very, very complete collection. And I think you can also actually download community mods as well to play with it. So yeah, just a ton of stuff here. And of course it's so great playing Doom on this new hardware because it just runs so smoothly, so fast. And
as many frames per second as they want, basically.
Yeah, and it's weird because you watch, like I actually just trying to uncover all of the secrets for all the levels, I would on YouTube I would come across videos of people playing this on a PC, and it looks so strange because the frame rate is so much lower that it just looks weird. Like because it's like one of the great things about these games is just how fast they run now and how you can just run all over the place. But yeah, it's really, really a really complete collection here, and also you can also play it on Game Pass cloud streaming as well, so you can play all of this stuff. You can finally take Doom with you and play it on your phone if you so desire.
We are one step closer to Doom on a toaster.
We are. Yeah, I feel like at some point we'll be able to play Doom on Doom.
I thought that had already happened.
It has.
Yeah.
Okay. But like with cloud streaming, as long as you can get it online, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Did we? Sorry, I skipped a bit. Did we mention that Balatro now has Doom? Like someone made Doom play in Balatro somehow.
That's so good.
What? Sure.
Anyway, that's
Sure.
something to Google. Now I'm thinking maybe that was made up, or like it can't be.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Like nothing surprises me with people trying to get Doom to run on stuff.
Yeah, there was an article about that.
Yeah, and I mean, they're like even trying to get Doom to run on like weird things like bacteria and stuff like that. Like really, really crazy. Like I've seen some stuff like that where, yeah, like people are putting like electrical pulses through like just really weird stuff out there. Let's just say there's a lot of science nerds with a lot of time on their hands. But also, one of the things, the final thing I would just add on this is that they do actually, and it's funny coming into this from Epic's Rogue a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about the music. With this, they have various kinds of music. They have the original music, and then they have a completely new soundtrack that's all, kind of butt rock. So it's very, very well done. So yeah, so if you're looking for Doom and Doom 2 Overload, this is it. It's all there. So very cool.
Nice.
I have yet to touch any. I'm just playing through the original Doom now, trying to get like just 100% on secrets and stuff like that. So I haven't touched any of the new content, especially in particular the machine games level pack, but I've heard it's actually it does a little bit more. Like, it's not just built in the original engine; it does a little bit more than what the original engine does.
Right.
So it's a little bit modified. So it'll be interesting to see that.
I guess I could mention this now. The I talked about for several weeks about Power Slave Exhumed, saying that it was for the first time it had a sale, so I got it. It got another sale now, and actually a bunch of stuff by what are they called? The Atari 50 developers. Digital Eclipse. Yes. A whole bunch of people under the Atari umbrella, I guess. So the developers we just mentioned, anyway, so there are sales on all that stuff. So this is the time to get Power Slave Exhumed, but for 55% off, so an even lower price than I got it for. But also like Karateka, Atari 50, all that stuff also on sale.
Yeah,
Cool.
I want to check out that Karateka. That was one of my favorite games back in the day.
Cool. Well, this is auspicious for retro collections.
It is. I mean, the retro. I really do like this trend of actually them deep diving on retro games, because it's just really, really interesting. Especially, it's funny. I follow Jordan Mechner, who is the creator of Karateka on Mastodon, and it's interesting because he has a diary for everything. Like the entire making of that game, he journaled every single day. So,
oh God,
yeah. It's pretty wild. Like, he was like, I was just the other day, he posted a journal excerpt from 2 weeks before the game was finished, and he was saying, I have to fix this bug, and this other developer that was on the game, he was saying that this is I guess they finished the game. He was living in LA at the time. I think he lives in Paris now or something, but he was in LA, and he said this other developer on the game, his car broke down. And because we had to, get this game shipped, he's now biking to the office, and he left his car over at his mom's place in LA. Just like, but all the minutia of like literally every single day of them developing that game, he has journaled out. So it's pretty remarkable. So I think that Karateka one would be very, very interesting, because you'd be able to chronologically piece together based on his journals exactly how the development of that game went.
Yeah, like he just kept everything, right? So that's why his work was so well suited for a documentary like that. You see all the correspondence with the publisher, and he just kept everything. So I don't know, like I doubt we're gonna see another collection that goes this deep.
Yeah, I doubt it.
It may be hard because so many more people are involved. Like, nobody would have that level of detail of what was going on.
Yeah. And those were the days when, one person could program an entire game, and,
Yes, and did.
Yeah, and did. And, maybe they would get some help from a couple of other people, maybe, but they would. That was the day of the true auteur developer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Lord. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, John?
No, I'm good.
All right, well, that's going to do it for new business this week. Greg, what's our music to end the show?
Well, with it being episode 888, it had to be something that tied into that, had to be. And, of course, Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 did come to mind.
There you go.
Did come to mind, but we have used a couple, one each requests, I believe, or songs from those games in the past. So I thought, what we haven't used something for, even though we've used games, songs from the series of games, but this specific part, the Octo expansion of Splatoon 2.
Oh. Well done.
Which has some really memorable kind of music, actually, going back listening to it. 'Cause it's been a while. It was 2018. I mean, what other year could it have been in that decade, I guess, that the Octo expansion came out. And, it brought back memories of playing that. Of course, now, like, you get it as part of the expansion pack. If you're a Nintendo Switch Online subscriber at that level, you have that, you have the sort of access to that, but, I bought it back then, played that, generally liked Splatoon single player stuff. Even I wouldn't say I was absolutely in love with it, but I definitely enjoyed it a lot, and the music was part of it. So this particular song that I've gone for is called Shark Bites, as in the unit of data, and just great synth poppy stuff with that little bit of Splatoon idiosyncrasy thrown in, with obviously the completely sort of indistinguishable language that they've invented for the Inklings or whatever, and then also just like some of the instrument choices, like, oh, here's just a little bit of banjo thrown in the middle of the heavy synth, just for whatever, just that kind of slightly kind of anarchic feel to it, but really, really good stuff.
Cool. All right. Well, now it's time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.